Hey fabulous lawyers, Claudia here. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 quick tips on how to grow and scale your law firm with systems rather than teams. So if you're a lawyer or a law firm owner who is feeling quite overwhelmed and anxious at the moment about what's going on in your law firm, perhaps you are working long hours, perhaps you're worried about your financial situation, perhaps you are feeling a bit annoyed, irritated, pissed off because you've got certain team members who need a lot of attention and energy, and perhaps they're making a lot of mistakes. If you're feeling that way, then chances are that you need to focus on and improve the systems in your law firm. Now, one thing I find is when I first start working with a law firm owner and they have these sorts of problems, the way that they think to solve those sorts of problems is to hire more people. But if you're hiring more people before you get your systems sorted, then you are throwing more fuel onto the fire and you will end up being more stressed, more overwhelmed, and you may end up with feelings of not wanting to be a law firm owner anymore, or even worse, just thinking that that's the way it is, that you have to live in this constant state of stress and overwhelm, and you do not, okay? It is a systems problem, and systems will set you free. Now, before I go any further, I want to provide some clarity around what a system is. So often when I'm working with lawyers and I'll say, tell me about the systems in your law firm, and they'll show me a few standard operating procedures they have, and they'll say, yep, these are our systems. And a standard operating procedure is not a system by itself, okay? So if you have some standard operating procedures, and which is great, but those by themselves are not systems. Okay, so a system is where you have a group of standard operating procedures that relate to a particular area of your business that, when combined with checklists, forms, templates, and other things needed to carry out that standard operating procedure, as well as clarity around who will follow those standard operating procedures, combined with the technology, the software, the tools, and other resources needed to carry out the standard operating procedures, as well as how those standard operating procedures will work together. When you've got all of those things, then that becomes a system. Okay, so an example in your law firm might be your marketing system. Okay, now your marketing system relates to the standard operating procedures, as well as forms, templates, technology, software, checklists, all the things that are needed to carry out those standard operating procedures for your marketing, as well as clarity around who needs to follow them, okay? So when you've got all of those things together for your marketing, for your firm's marketing and how you do your firm's marketing, then all of those things is your law firm's marketing system. Okay, so with that all said, let's get into these 3 quick tips. Okay, so tip number 1 on growing your law firm with systems rather than a team is to start thinking with a systems first approach. Okay, so you will be an incredible lawyer and you will think like a lawyer, right? As you should. But I want you to start thinking like a business owner, an investor in your law firm, and turning your law firm into an asset that can actually run largely without you, okay? Instead of relying on you so much like it does right now. So starting to think with a systems first approach is starting to question how you can reduce the number of questions that come to you, okay? So every time you get a question from a team member, every time you get a question from a client, every time you get a question from a supplier, anytime you get any question that relates to your business, instead of just freely answering the question and giving that person who's asking the question the information that you have that they need, pause and think, how can I deliver this information in a way that I never have to answer this question ever again? Okay, so it's just a different way of thinking. And to go from just automatically answering the question to start thinking with a systems of first approach, it takes a bit of training. And I'll tell you about how I trained myself to start thinking like this. Okay, are you ready? It's super technical. On a post-it, I wrote, are you thinking with a systems first mindset today? ? In bold, vivid, and stuck the post-it to the top of one of my computer screens. Okay? Just to start getting into the habit, every time I would look at it, it would remind me to question the question. Okay, so every time somebody would ask me a question, I would start thinking, okay, I know the answer to this, but how can I deliver this information in a way that I never have to answer it again? Okay, so that's tip number one. Tip number two is to write down the top 3 things that are pissing you off in your law firm right now. Okay, that are annoying you, that are frustrating you, that are making you anxious. Write down the top 3. Okay, so you might be feeling stressed because the amount in your bank account is lower than usual. Okay, you might be stressed because a team member is making mistakes. You might be having trouble with a particular client. You might be a bottleneck with your client intake and onboarding. Anything like that, just write it down, okay? And then once you've written these 3 things down, next to it, write what you think could be causing it, okay? And what I find is that the way to figure out what's causing a problem, you can usually figure out by looking at your numbers, by looking at your data, okay? So if the cash in your bank account is lower than usual, you might instantly think it's because I don't have enough work on. But then you look at your billings for the last few weeks or the last month, and you see that your billings are actually up. Okay, so that tells you, okay, it's not a marketing system problem. It's not that you're not getting enough work in. So you're like, well, what could it be? Then you have a look at your overdue debtors, and your debtors that are overdue by over 30 days have shot up, okay, which tells you that you've got a credit control problem or an overdue debtor problem. So then you can go and fix that system. Okay, so that helps you to see which specific system you need to improve or fix, rather than just kind of going gut feel about what it is that you need to do. Okay, so first of all, identify what's pissing you off, and then use your data to actually figure out what the cause of it is. Don't make an assumption, okay? Because what I find is law firm owners always jump to the fact that they don't have enough work on, and that's actually usually not the problem. It's another system within the firm that's causing the problem, okay? Rather than it being a marketing problem. Okay, and then tip number 3 is to just get started and keep it really simple. So something I find with my law firm owner clients is that when we identify a system that needs fixing, they feel very overwhelmed because they feel like it's going to be this huge job to improve the system and get a system in place. But that's actually not true. And there are a couple of options on how to get started quickly and not have to, spend a whole lot of money on software and things like that. So option number 1 is to hire a coach or a consultant like me who has specific law firm systems and law firm standard operating procedures that you can grab, and we can get them tailored to your specific personal law firm situation. Okay, so that means you can get started really, really quickly. Option 2 is to use the freely available resources that are freely available to you, okay? So often law firm owners think that they need to go and buy a software like Process Street or Suite Process, which are not inexpensive and take a bit of time to get going. And while, that sort of software is great, you don't need it to get started, okay? Down the track, maybe, but not right now, okay? So you can just get started. You can pick the system that's pissing you off the most in your law firm and just choose one aspect of it. And you could do a screen record of how this needs to be done. You could take that video, okay? You can just video it on, you can video yourself on your iPhone. You can just do screen record using Loom, something like that, which is like $10 a month. And then you can put the video on YouTube, which is free. You can just set your private, your settings to private, so not everybody can come and watch your video. And then you can add that link to, your Teams or SharePoint. And that's the other thing, is if you've got some standard operating procedures, you don't, and they're in Word documents, you don't need to go and get Process Street to have them all laid out beautifully. You can just start with what you've already got, okay? Most of you will be Microsoft users, so put them in OneDrive, make it accessible to everybody. Put it in SharePoint, make it accessible to everybody. Just use what you've already got and just get started. And if writing a big long process is doing your head in, there's the thought of doing that, then just do a quick 2-minute screen record of something easy that will help solve one of your biggest headaches and share that with the people that it needs to be shared with. All right, peeps, I hope that those 3 tips on how to systemize your business and how to grow and scale your law firm with systems rather than teams was useful. Feel free to sign up to my mailing list below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. All right, bye.